everyone. My name is Kathryn Soley, and this is 1-800-CALL Kathryn. Let's get this candle lit, and oops, almost burned myself there, which is a little ironic, you might say, considering I will probably be burned at the stake for what I'm about to do. All right, let's jump right in. Let's hear from our first caller.
Hi, Kathryn. I have a question regarding creativity and my relationship to it. For some reason, I have a tumultuous relationship to creativity. I love the arts, and I'm an art teacher. So I've chosen to teach people how to do art, and I'm fairly good at it. Unfortunately, I find it very hard to make my own art. I found it hard before I was teaching when I had time. Just the feeling of people watching me and like perfectionism. And that's kind of why I took this love and I turned it into teaching. But now that I'm teaching, I'm like, why? I'm not even making art. So ridiculous. And even the time that I have, I just find myself so exhausted from actually teaching and being an adult. And then I feel guilty. And then the cycle repeats, and then I don't want to do art because I feel guilty. It's just so ridiculous. It's so silly. I know it should be simple, but unfortunately, I guess it has a root that I'm not even sure what it is. Yeah, any clarity on what's actually happening with that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, caller. You sound very cute, by the way. Okay, so let's shuffle these cards and see what we have for you. I can't remember, I think it was 2 episodes ago, someone called in about music and kind of a very similar theme to what you're talking about. I think she might have also been a music teacher. I can't remember if she was a teacher or not, but there may be some crossover. So caller, you might check out. Again, I don't remember which episode it was. If anyone watching knows which episode it was, let us know in the comments. Yeah, let's see what we have for you, caller. Okay, so we have the King of Pentacles, the Page of Cups, and the Ace of Pentacles. Interesting. So right away, just seeing all these cards together, I think I said this in the last episode, but tarot is so cool in that no 2 readings are the same ever. There's just infinite possibilities because you have all of these. There's not infinite. I don't know how many someone wants to do the math on how many actual card combinations there are. Probably at least thousands, tens of thousands of, if you're doing a 3-card reading. But then each person, brings their own energy. So each person is different. So you cannot have 2 readings that are the same. And also, I'm different every day. I'm shifting and growing and changing in my mind. And so my understanding of the tarot is shifting and growing and changing all the time too. But what's cool, I don't do spreads in my tarot readings. There's not like a past, present, future positioning to the cards or anything like that. But I do look at how the cards are laid out and how they relate to each other. And it's interesting to see the King of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles, flanking on either side here. The King is the top of the heap of the Pentacles. He has the mastery of the Pentacles. We've had a lot of kings in our 1-800-CALL Kathryn episodes. There's been, a couple. I've talked a lot about the kings, but I don't think we've had the King of Pentacles come up. Maybe we have, but the king is someone who has a certain level of mastery over the themes of the suit that he's ruling. And so this suit, the Pentacles, has to do with our physical world experience. So since you're talking about creativity and your work, this is probably what it's relating to. And so there's like this mastery. I could see this part of you that's, the teacher part that knows about art and knows how to teach it and understands a lot about art. But then on the other side here, we have the Ace of Pentacles, which is the beginner. It's new. It's, the aces in tarot are, whenever I see an ace, whether it's the Ace of Pentacles, Cups, Wands, or Swords, they're so energetic. They're the beginning. They're like, we're starting anew. There's lots of energy and momentum behind it. We don't know what we're doing with that energy, but there's a lot of energy there. It's like when you start some kind of new project or you start some kind of new hobby or new interest, and at the beginning there's all this, excitement and energy towards it, but you have no idea what you're doing yet. You don't know where things are going. And so I see these two parts of yourself together. There's like the part that's, okay, I'm the teacher. You have to a certain extent, I would imagine, at least act like you know what you're talking about in terms of art. But you probably do, know quite a bit of art. And like you said that you're good at teaching. So you're probably, have a lot of skill in this arena, even if you have difficulty creating from time to time. And then you have this newer kind of beginner. So there's a part of you that where the idea of beginner's mind comes to mind. Beginner's mind is this idea that comes from Zen Buddhism. There's a famous book by Suzuki Roshi called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And in that, he famously says, in the mind of the beginner, there are many possibilities. In the mind of the expert, there are few. And so I wonder if, as you're, reapproaching your artistic, your creative expression, can you come to it more with the mind of a beginner? Like, pretend, here could be a fun thing to do. We're gonna play pretend. As adults, we don't really get to play pretend that much, I say, as I'm dressed as a Puritan. But yeah, we don't get to do that much. And a lot of adults are really out of practice with pretending, but pretending can be an interesting practice for different reasons. And so can you just pretend for 1 hour that you are not an art teacher, that you didn't go to art school, that you don't have a body of work that you've already created, and you're just gonna come to a blank piece of paper or a blank canvas, get your tools, and just approach it like you have no idea what you're doing. Like you're totally new to art, and see what you make, see what comes up. There's gonna be, of course, a part's gonna come back online, a voice is gonna come in that's like, no, you already did this, or this is, this reminds me of that thing that I saw last week. You're not being original. You're not, what are you doing? That's not correct. The proportions are off. Anytime it can become like a meditation practice. So anytime you start to hear a voice coming in, and you said too that you are worried, you feel like people are watching you and you have perfectionism. So what you're gonna do, if you do this exercise, is you're gonna be vigilant and you're gonna notice when the voice comes in of perfectionism, the voice comes in of what are other people gonna think about this, the voice comes in about, who's watching me. And anytime you notice that voice coming in, you're just gonna go, shh, okay, thank you, but that's not right now. You tell that voice, you just take a break. You go over there, you have a cup of tea, and you just mind your own business for just this 1 hour. Just, can you give me 1 hour to just make art on my own without you getting involved? And it may be easy to do this, but it may be very difficult. You may have to keep telling that, you may have to keep telling that voice. You may have to take a break and cry. You may have to, you may all of a sudden be like, oh my God, where is this voice coming from? And have to explore something, I don't know. But just try that out, see how that goes. And that's kind of, I mean, for anyone, that could be a fun practice. I mean, with any kind of skill that you have, it can be a fun, interesting practice to look at, how would I relate to this if I didn't know what I know now? How would a beginner relate to this? And then, so we also have the Page of Cups here, and I kind of talked about this without talking about it anyway, but the Page of Cups here is in the middle, and this feels like it's this part of you that's wanting to explore art, wanting to reconnect with art in a more pure way, in a more, the pages are also beginners, they're on a journey. And so, you may find yourself at this time on a journey of re-exploring art from a perspective from a new perspective, like letting go of the self-critic, letting go of the part that's like, there's someone watching me. By the way, who's watching you? Does this come from art school? I majored in art myself, so I can kind of, sorry, this thing, it's not really staying on. It's kind of awkward. I majored in art in college, so I kind of know what you're talking about. Or I'm guessing, I'm making a guess here based on my own experience of, you're going about making your work, and then, got to do a critique. The teacher's coming by and they're going to give me their opinion and they're going to tell me what they think I could be doing better and how I could improve it. And so, there may be like the internalized critique could be there. And in a lot of ways, and I went to an art school it wasn't really an art school, it was a Buddhist university that I had a really small art department, and I loved it. And it was great because it was really like focused on what it means to be an artist as opposed to being a good artist, making, good work. It was like, what does it mean to be an artist? But in some ways, I feel like my art was a lot better before I went to school because it was just more pure. I wasn't like thinking about it conceptually. I was just sort of like, this is what I'm making, this is what excites me. I'm not really worried about my grades or things like that. So you may need to do some kind of deconditioning from art school. And, chances are too, if that voice has been internalized, it probably reaches back before going to art school. Did you have a parent who was a little bit critical, who was a little bit, maybe judgmental or overbearing in some way? It can be even in a small way, but on some level, where was this internalized? And so the Page of Cups, is this new kind of journey that you may find yourself on at this time, where there's a sort of innocence, and the cups is related to the emotions, our emotional landscape, where the pentacles have to do with our physical world experience. The cups are the emotional landscape. So to me, this indicates that there's like not only a new way of actually making the art, but a new way of relating to it emotionally. Looking at, what are my blocks emotionally around creating art? Where does that critic come from? Who's watching, again, now, today, who's watching you make art? Nobody's watching you make art. You're, unless you're like doing some kind of performance art where people are there to literally watch you, nobody's watching you, right? So, and you don't even have to post on social media. You don't have to have a social media presence, at least not for this, right? You can just do it all alone. And if that critic comes in, no, you can't watch me. You just tell the critic to stop bothering you. Or, the other option, you can tell the critics to stop bothering you, but you can also ask, like, why are you here? You can, it sounds a little schizophrenic, if you're not familiar with this idea of talking to different parts of your psyche. It's not schizophrenic. It's, there are these different aspects, different parts of ourselves. There's different roles that we play in the world. There's different ideas that we have about ourselves. There's different wounds that we carry, and each one kind of has its own perspective in a certain way. And so, you could talk to that part that's worried about the art making, that's judging in some way, and you could close your eyes and imagine talking to that part of yourself and asking, why are you here? Like, what's your purpose? Chances are that part is trying to protect you from feeling bad in some way, from feeling hurt or feeling rejected or something like this. And so you can also, if that's the case, you can, actually have a conversation with that part of yourself and be like, I know you have good intentions. I know you're trying to help protect me from embarrassment or from, something, but it's actually not. It's no longer helping me. You're no longer serving me. So why don't you join me and we're gonna just have fun and make some art today. So let's pull an oracle card here for some guidance with these themes going forward. The Moon card. So when I see the Moon card come up in relationship to this reading, it feels like it's emphasizing a little bit more of a part that I've touched on a little bit, but it's emphasizing it more, which is when I think about the Moon card, I think about the unconscious or the subconscious. And so looking at, these voices, these internalized kind of fears or anxieties that you have, recognizing that it's not just, and I don't think that you believe this, but it's not just having a creative block, there's and creative block, it's never just as simple as that. There's something, a fear, there's something emotional, coming up. And so, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this maybe originated in a certain way from art school, but it may have originated even deeper down, whether it's parental or it's, and you can, by the way, you can have great parents in a lot of ways, and they can do things still that affect you in a negative way, unintentionally. They can, be very supportive in certain ways, but maybe there was one time that they said, I don't like, in some way they indicated that they didn't like your artwork or something, and then it's internalized, or they didn't care that you were making this art, or I don't know what it is. And then on some more subtle level, that could have been internalized to be like, I have to prove that, my art is good, otherwise I won't be loved, or, there's things that can, and if it's not from the parents, maybe something happened in school. Also, just being an artist in the world, it's it's a little bit different now with social media, because it seems like people can make a living as artists, but when I was growing up, it's, it's always looked at as that can be a hobby, but it's not a career. I remember one time when I was in school, in art school, my dad told me, we were at a restaurant, and he was like, you're gonna have to learn how to be a server if you're gonna be an artist. And I cried. I was like, yeah, I felt yeah, Dad doesn't believe in me. But it's a hard thing for most people to wrap their heads around. But you've made, you're a teacher. You made, a career out of being able to be in the arts. So you don't even have to worry about that. But there can still be these internalized kind of critical voices around that. So, all right, caller, that's what I have for you. I hope you do that little project, or anyone else listening, even if you're just doing something like that with a beginner's mind, going in like I have no idea what I'm doing, can be a kind of fun thing. Okay, let's hear from our next caller. To reload the call. Okay, here we go.
Hi, so I just wanted some clarity on, I don't know. I wanted some clarity on this guy and one of my soul classes. I was wondering if maybe, not even necessarily like him, but there is a relationship coming towards my way, maybe.
Okay. Thank you, caller. This message, I know I said that the last caller was cute. This one is like, I feel like the cutest message that I've ever gotten on the show. There's something, do you guys hear it? That it's like the feeling of having a crush is transmitted through the little like giggles. Okay, caller. Well, let's see what we have for you. Let's shuffle these cards. Oops. You know, thinking of, like I said at the beginning, being burned at the stake for practicing witchcraft, and I get comments on, I mean, this isn't a very big show or anything, it's not at all, but I get comments on some of my little video clips from people, you know, telling me just Bible verses and how I'm practicing witchcraft and I need to be saved and stuff like that. And it's interesting how that kind of sticks around in different emanations. I don't view this as witchcraft. I'm not a witch. I'm not, I mean, throw me in the lake. Is that good? Yeah, I'm not a witch. I hope that those people leaving comments that they actually are like praying for my soul and my salvation, and that they're actually wanting, you know, to bring people into the light of Christ as opposed to like wanting me to die. I hope they don't. It's quite a different kind of energy when you focus on the light and wanting to bring folks into the light and wanting to bring people to salvation through, you know, your lens, even if, you know, not everyone shares that lens of salvation. You know, if it's coming from a good place, I think that's more or less nice, and I don't mind it at all. But if someone is, you know, focused on the hell and the, you know, the sin, that's harder for me, and I bet for a lot of people. But then, you know, again, from their perspective, they feel like they're helping. It's like, you know, have you guys ever at that church, the Westboro Baptist Church, like, I think that they really feel like they were helping people. That, you know, that's what they would say, that like we're saving people from hell. And, you know, it's odd, but anyway, everybody's just trying to figure it out the best that they can. All right, well, let's see what we have for the caller here. Okay, so we have the Sun, the Five of Cups, and the Queen of Wands. This feels like a sweet reading. I'm gonna tighten my little bonnet here while I think about what these cards might symbolize. So it's interesting, there's a lot of, again, you know, on these two flanking cards, both of these feel like optimistic, energetic, excited about life, joyful. Like, I can hear that in your voice a bit. Like, this is, like I said, you sound so cute. You sound so like bubbly and sweet, and that's transmitted, and I see that reflected in the cards here. And then we have in the middle here the Five of Cups, which can be, you know, fives are kind of an interesting number in tarot because they're the in-between. They join the first four numbers and the last. You know, there's 1 through 10 in the tarot, so the 5 are right in the middle. And so the 5s can be like a difficult point because you're transitioning, you're changing from, you know, the beginning of something towards a greater understanding around it. And like I said in the last reading, the cups are related to our emotions. So sometimes with the 5 of Cups, you know, some themes that can come up are feelings of focusing on what's gone wrong, focusing on the glass half empty versus the glass half full. So we have these cards here where we have 2 cards that are like saying, let's focus on what's going right. Let's bring our excitement, our energy, our momentum to this. And also, you know, noting that there may be a part that's fearful, that feels like things aren't gonna work out. And so, like you said here, you have a crush on someone in one of your classes, but it sounds like in general you're just looking for love, looking for a relationship. And so I would say, you know, based on these cards, to just put your energy for the most part towards that bubbly, optimistic lover that you have within yourself, and see how that works. Like, just stay positive, stay optimistic. You know, I see sometimes online and friends and stuff talking, feeling very demoralized about the dating culture now, like on apps, and just the constant swiping for novelty. Like, there's always something better around the corner, people having difficulty committing, like lots of different things that maybe weren't as much of an issue in the past. I mean, yeah, but so if you find yourself in moments and times where you're feeling disheartened, you're feeling maybe even heartbroken or rejected or whatever, just keeping that bubbly, that optimistic, positive, energetic part of yourself alive. Now, I want to say too, since we have the 5 of Cups here, be careful not to smush down and repress those fears that may arise of, am I going to be alone? What if this crush I have doesn't like me back? What if I, you know, can't find love? What if I'm rejected? Like, whatever the fears, whatever the flavor of the fears that you have that arise, don't repress it. So this is something I talk about a lot when I teach about poisonous plants, the poisonous plant medicine course, which there's a new round of those classes, by the way, starting January 5th. And the poisonous plant medicine course is, there's 4 levels to it. A level 1 is starting in January. I have a level 2 starting in February, and it's 6 weeks of classes. Each class is 3.5 hours long. We talk about 1 or 2 different poisonous plants every week. We work with them energetically. We talk about myth. We talk about our own psyches. We talk about shadow work. We talk about trauma. It's a really cool offering that I do. It's like one of my favorite things that I get to do in all of my life. But one of the things that I talk about in those classes is how, who says this? There's a quote that, you can't, there's a lot of different quotes different people have said, but basically it's, you can't make yourself light without acknowledging the darkness. Carl Jung says something like, for a tree to reach heavens, its roots must reach down into hell. So to try to do this like positive thinking, everything's great. Look, I'm just gonna say my mantras every day. I'm just gonna say, or not mantras, what do people, my daily affirmations, I'm only gonna focus on the positive. If a negative thought comes up, I'm gonna squish it down. I'm gonna ignore it. Positive affirmations can be like a great thing, and I'm not negating that. But I think when there's this like I'm just gonna ignore the fears that I have. I'm gonna ignore the fear that nobody loves me. I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna find love. I'm gonna find love. It can create like kind of a schism. And in my life, the people that I've been around who are like really into that, like just positive thinking, good vibes only, are kind of scary to be around, because you can feel like any moment that like something is gonna like cause them to crack and set them off. But there's a balance that I think one can find where you can, make it so that you are trying to focus on staying optimistic, on seeing the good in the world, seeing the good in yourself, focusing on, a brighter future for yourself in your life, but also acknowledging like, here are my fears that maybe prevent me from actually doing that. And really, in order to, I think, fully get to that brighter future that you want, to fully get there, you have to work through the blocks that prevent you from doing that. Okay, so let's pull an oracle card here for you, caller. Oh, imperfection. Love this one. Imperfection. So, I mean, it's, in a way, it's very self-explanatory one. You don't have to do things perfectly. You don't have to be perfect in order to be loved. I will say too, I think the way that I read tarot is just, I think, a little bit different than the way that a lot of readers do tarot. So sometimes I get, some of the calls are like, is relationship coming your way? I should have said this at the beginning. I don't really answer the readings like that. I'm more looking at like, what do you need to know about relationships right now, as opposed to like predicting, does your crush like you back, or are you gonna find love next week or whatever, because I just don't find that those readings are A, very accurate, or B, very helpful. So I think that people get the most out of the readings when you look at it as like, this is about you and your inner experience, and it's like a reflection back to yourself. So in a way, this reading I'm just looking at it as like, what does this caller need to know, need to understand about their relationship to relationships, or, around this theme of what you're calling here. So, if there's a part of you that feels like you have to be perfect, or your object of love has to be perfect, or the relationship has to be perfect, or there's any sort of like getting hung up on any sort of idea of perfection in any way, this can be something that's more unconscious or subconscious. In fact, I sort of have the sense that as you're listening, you're probably like, I don't have that. It may be more under the surface than you recognize. So, yeah, I guess overall, the overall advice is just to put your attention primarily to focus on not losing and perhaps even further cultivating this optimistic lover that you have, within yourself, this part of yourself that is joyful and positive and energetic and like, okay, and almost innocent isn't quite the right word here, but there is like a little bit of like innocence of just, I'm gonna keep coming with my open heart. I'm just gonna keep, my heart open to the world, even if, things don't quite go as I was hoping, or my heart gets broken here or there, or I feel rejected here or there. Letting yourself feel those feelings of not good enough or rejected, or things aren't quite going the way that I wanted them to, whatever it may be. Letting yourself feel those things, but not letting it ever harden your optimism and your the lover in you. Okay, caller. I hope that your crush goes well. Having crush, I mean, it's kind of a great feeling, isn't it? I mean, sometimes not so much, depending on how it goes. Oh, yeah, what a ride. Okay, let's hear from our last caller here.
Hi, Kathryn. My name is Jennifer. And at this time, I'm reflecting on the transition of Pluto and Capricorn into Aquarius and what that has meant for my life, especially in the last 10 years, which has involved a lot of major transition and grief and just general challenges with my health. That has also coincided with what I recognize now as a shamanic initiation that I have been slowly becoming more and more aware of in recent years as being something that I can truly accept. And like many people who are initiated in this way, I have been suffering from a mystery illness that's along the lines of fibromyalgia. And the challenges, both mentally and physically, as I've also been on an educational and career path as well, all the way through the pandemic. That most recently led me to a graduate program in library science in Los Angeles, where I moved from the Bay shortly after my undergraduate program ended within a month. And I was there for 2 years and went through a major energetic shift that eventually led me to step away this year, move back to the Bay Area, and to focus on healing, which I have been doing through acupuncture this whole year. So what I'm asking now, as we are making these major transitions, Pluto and Aquarius will be in my 9th house. I would like to know what Spirit needs me to be aware of, or where it would like to lead me in regards to returning back to my master's program and the outlook for my health.
Okay. Your call might have gone longer, caller, because that was at 3 minutes. So, but it sounds like it kind of cut off at the right time. But I don't know if there was more in there, but hopefully we got it all. So let's see what we have for you here. I had my first job was in a library. I started working there when I was 14, and it was really cool. It was a good job. I feel like it's a great, there's a position in libraries called a page. That has nothing to do with the pages in a book necessarily, but I think it's a great job for like young people. It was good for me as a Virgo sun to be organizing the books by number and alphabetically. Okay, let's see. I'm saying that, by the way, because the caller said she just got a degree in library sciences. In case you're like, why the hell is Kathryn telling me about her library job? Okay, so we have the Page of Pentacles, the Eight of Swords, and the Nine of Pentacles. So, the way that I'm relating to your call is basically, what do you need to know at this time? You've given a lot of background of what's been going on over the last few years, and you're feeling like this transition of Aquarius into Pluto feels like it's relevant for you. And so there does feel like this transition kind of feeling happening. So we have the Page of Pentacles here, and so we've had another page. Was it in the last reading that we had it? The thing with tarot also that's interesting, I don't know if I've said this in a previous episode, is that I do not remember readings after I've given them. Like I'll probably, because of the show and I'm like editing it, I'll have a better idea of what the reading, was about. Looking back on it, I'll be able to remember it a little bit clearer, the readings on the shows. But if you get a reading from me, I am very unlikely to remember it beyond like 10 minutes after I've done it. There's something, it's like the part of my brain that does the reading and just my normal functioning brain are different. By the way, you can get a reading from me through my website, personalized reading, not for the show. I do offer those through my website. So yeah, I can't remember which reading we had with the page. But anyway, so the page, it's someone who's starting out on a journey. And the pentacles, again, we've had pentacles come up a few in most, I think even in all of the readings have been kind of pentacle heavy. The pentacles, again, they have to do with our physical world experience. And so and it feels like I said, I don't do spreads, like there's not past, present, future, but I do look at the cards, how they relate to each other. And there is this feeling of movement. And it feels like we're looking at the past towards the future. And the past or the current, feels like it's more here on the left. And then this is moving, things to keep in mind moving forward. And so with the Page of Pentacles, it's like this new kind of exploration in your physical world experience, which it sounds like something you've been working with. You could consider a health journey being that, you're having these mystery health ailments, which, you know, comes up, like you said, a lot of times for people that have a sort of a spiritual, or you use the word shamanic initiation, or some kind of like spiritual something happens. And, you know, I don't have all the answers of that, but I think that that happens for a lot of people because it's triggering, you know, when you have some kind of shift where you're being pushed into a so-called higher state or more expansive state of consciousness, it's going to be triggering all of those, all that stuff, all of that stuff that we're holding in our unconscious and the subconscious, all the wounds that we have, like everything, your identity, the identity that you've made for yourself based on all of your life experiences so far. You know, we all walk around with these different, you know, these masks that we wear, like my name is Kathryn, I'm 36 years old, I grew up in Connecticut, I live in Iowa, I'm doing a tarot reading, I, you know, had my first job at the library, whatever. You know, we have all of these different identities that we wear that help us to navigate through the world. But when you're having these expanded states of consciousness, you start to see that all of those ways that you've been viewing yourself and viewing the world are not necessarily real. They're roles. It's like you're like an actor playing these roles and believing that they're real. It's like if an actor gets really into method acting and they they start to believe that they are the character. That's how it can feel. And you know, the way that we got into those characters, these characters that we're playing, often come from, you know, these wounds. So like going back to the first caller with the art, and, you know, if there's a feeling like, you know, the feeling of like I'm being watched or I'm going to be criticized, that's from some kind of wound that happened, and then that colors one's perspective, right? And we all have, you know, our own stories, our own different roles, our own identities, our own wounds that we're kind of working with and carrying, and all of those, you know, they create these layers on like the glasses that we're wearing. So everyone is kind of wearing these different glasses and perceiving reality differently until you can take off the glasses. And then, you know, all of these wounds, all of these identities, all of these roles you've been playing, suddenly it's like, oh, that's not really I'm not really who I thought I was. Wow. And so I think having all of this, you know, jostling of sense of self, it can stir up physical symptoms. You can feel like physically ill. It's like, you know, taking different psychedelics. You know, people can get very nauseous and vomit on LSD, but LSD, you know, you're taking such a minuscule, tiny dose of it. So that's not what's making you sick. It's the emotions, you know, that are churning and making you feel ill. It's like that if you've ever had a bout of, you know, a panic attack or anxiety, and you start shaking, or you feel like you're going to throw up, or you get woozy. You know, there are more kind of variations of that I think kind of manifest into these mystery illnesses, or these. And obviously, you know, there's cases too where like you're exposed to some kind of chemical, or, you know, there are literally like physical things that can happen that can cause autoimmune disorders or different types of diseases in the body. That's okay. I'm not discrediting that, and I'm not saying that it's all in the head or it doesn't exist. But there does seem, you know, I've personally had times where I felt very sick. There was a period, I had this kind of like mind-blowing thing happen a couple of years ago where I had really bad brain fog. My joints were aching. I felt like I couldn't think clearly. I was confused, and this went on for like 2 weeks or maybe longer. And I started to be like, okay, something's really wrong with me. Like, what is wrong with my brain? I've had some kind of exposure to something. I started to, you know, and I ended up opening this drawer where I had been growing mushrooms in like a little bag, and I'd forgotten about it. And when I opened it, it was all like, it had all this molds all over it. And I had this wave of panic of like, oh my God, this is why I'm sick. I got mold exposure, I got mold poisoning. And when I saw it, I had this intense wave of just total panic come over me. And I started sobbing and shaking and just had this huge release. And afterwards, immediately afterwards, all of the symptoms went away. It was like, and during that time also, I was going through some difficult emotional stuff, and it felt like there was some sort of block to feeling it, and something about having this external, oh, this must be why I'm feeling sick. All of a sudden, it was like, okay, I was able to express something, and then all of those symptoms went away. So I think, you know, there are definitely times where the symptoms are from some kind of blocked, like emotional thing, something that needs to be expressed, something that needs to be processed. And it can manifest in the physical. And again, I know, because I know this is a sensitive topic, and I'm not being dismissive, because I know that the symptoms are very real. And there are times when it is emotional, and there are times where there's something physical, where you're like, you've been exposed to something, or there's, you know, been poisoned in some way. But anyway, so why did I go on? I went on a long tangent there. But it's because you've been going through like a health journey. So this, you know, with the Page of Pentacles, there's the new kind of work with the library sciences, there's the move, you know, there's been a lot kind of new experiences going on in the physical world. With the Eight of Swords, this may be something that you're feeling now, or it may be something that you're kind of moving through. But with the Eight of Swords, it can be, in this instance, I'm going to relate it to a feeling of feeling trapped, of feeling stuck. So classically in the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith deck, which is the deck that most people are familiar with, I'll show here. This is what the Eight of Swords looks like. It's a woman who's tied up, she's blindfolded. And this is how the Eight of Swords can feel. And so when you're, you know, this is how I can imagine you may be feeling at times with your health issues, and just being uncertain about, you know, where to go in life, of what's going on, going through, you know, I don't know all the specifics here, but, you know, you went through some sort of major energetic shift that led you to step away this year and move back to the Bay Area and to focus on healing. So there's, you know, what leads you to do that. It could be this feeling of trappedness, and you may still be kind of moving out of that feeling of trappedness. And what I always like to point out with the Eight of Swords, you know, when I used to use the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith deck for my readings, which I moved away from using, because look at the difference here. If you're giving a reading to someone and I show them the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith and I show them the Marseille deck, which is what I use now, there's so much projection that someone can do on that Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith image that I don't have to worry about with the Marseille deck. The Marseille deck is more pure. And also the Eight of Swords here in the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith, it limits the scope of what the card can be, because the Eight of Swords can also be this heavenly kind of balance, this very heavenly balance is how I'll describe it now. But it's, each card has its like shadow side and its brilliant side, and, you know, it's they have, just like people, just like in astrology, you know, there's the neurotic side to a Virgo, there's the healthy side to a Virgo, and, you know, same with all of the signs. Some people seem to think, you know, there's no good Scorpios, there's no good Geminis. That's not true. There's very good qualities that a Scorpio can have. There's very good qualities that a Gemini can have. And so it's the same thing, you know, with cards, that, you know, there's good and bad. And so if someone sees, you know, the way that this card is depicted here, they're not gonna, it's gonna freak them out. I talk about this in length, and I have an intro to tarot series on my Patreon, where if you want to learn how to read tarot yourself, I have 35 plus hours on how to read tarot, all on my Patreon. All of those classes are available for only $5. It's not a gimmick, it's not a scam. In fact, I feel like I should start charging like $1,000 for it, and then people would actually start maybe respecting it more. It's something about, people have like a block if something is available for free or inexpensive, they think it's not valuable, but I'm telling you, it is. Anyway, I go into, depth of why I switched from using the Rider-Waite to using the Marseille deck in those Intro to Tarot series classes. But anyway, so that feeling of stuckness, you may just find yourself, breaking free of that. And so, as I was saying, what I like to point out, and what I always like to point out when I was using the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith deck, is that the swords are, they have to do with themes of how we think. And so a lot of times, the more difficult kind of feelings that can arise with the swords cards are because it's in our minds. So it's not necessarily rooted in reality. So if there are fears, if there are anxieties coming up at this time of like, what am I doing? What am I going to do? Am I ever going to feel better? Am I ever going to get out of this? What are my next steps? Which I don't really hear from your voice, but I'm going to guess that that's in there somewhere, because if you're going through major changes, you're having like your life uprooted in certain ways and there's uncertainty about where things are going to go, how could fears and things not arise? It seems impossible. But so if that's there, remembering that, it's with the swords card here, it's in the mind and it's not necessarily rooted in reality. It's like that thing that, I think most people have experienced where you're in school and you have to give a presentation the next day. And like, I don't know, this is something that would happen to me. So the night before I might have difficulty sleeping, I would be thinking like, oh no, I'm like scared to talk in front of people. I'm nervous. I have to give this presentation. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And then you get to school and give your presentation. It's totally fine. Like everything's good. So that can happen in, so many areas in people's life where we can blow things up in a way, or, in the case of the Eight of Swords, where it can feel like I'm stuck, I'm trapped, I'm never going to get out of here. But it's not necessarily the case. I mean, it's not the case. It can't be. You're never really stuck anywhere. Even if you're imprisoned, your mind is free. Like your mind is always free as long as you allow it to be so. And then we have, moving again all the way here towards the future of what's being moved towards. We have the Nine of Pentacles, which in this reading I'm relating to a sense of fulfillment, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of abundance, having enough, feeling happy with the way that things are, feeling good where things are. So no matter what's going on in the world around you, there's a sense of okayness. There are things like, more specifically, that kind of come up when I listen to your call that feel like they're not really getting addressed in the reading. So let's see if the Oracle deck has more for us here. Oop, I really flew right out of my hand there. Okay, interesting. So there's a couple cards in this deck that don't have a name. And there's a couple cards that are like geometrically based, like this one. And this one, I relate to the element of earth. I look at squares as related to the element of earth, and I look at the color yellow as related to the element of earth. And so if pentacles are related also to the element of earth, this is like a very earth-heavy reading. So it feels like this further invitation to ground what you know. My sense is, so you're bringing up this astrology thing, and that you said Pluto's moving into your 9th house. I'm not like an astrologer by any means, but it's been an interest of mine for a long time. And I have a stellium in Sagittarius in my 9th house, so I'm pretty aware of the 9th house. And so if you're moving into the 9th house, that's what kind of caught my eye too. And that was the piece that I'm like, I wonder if this is going to come up in the reading. But you may find yourself wanting to move into a role of writing or sharing or even further studying things that, within this realm, whatever this, what you called this shamanic initiation, what was that about? Why did that happen to you? What was that, when things like that happen, this is for everyone listening. People have like this amazing spiritual experience or a shamanic initiation or just some kind of like consciousness expanding experience, and then they stop there. that was it. That was the message. That's all I needed to get. but that sort of experience is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. It's all of a sudden now you're seeing reality a little bit more clearly, and the journey has just begun. So yeah, asking yourself why did this come up? Why did this sort of thing happen to me? What's going on? It may take time to understand that. It will take time to understand that and to follow that. But, you know, having that ninth house coming up at this time, you may find yourself, again, wanting to more deeply understand the things that have arisen at this time. You may find yourself wanting to write about it or share about it more. And having this square card and all of these pentacles here too, it feels like this invitation to stay grounded with it, stay practical with it, believe it or not. And I kind of get the sense that that may not be difficult for you to stay grounded and practical with it. So, okay, Jennifer, thanks for calling in. I hope that that's helpful. And I wish you the best on your next stage. So, let's do a card of the day, and then we'll close out the episode. Okay. The King of Wands. The King of Wands. So again, like the Kings have been showing up in a lot of our readings here on the show, the past few episodes. Wands rule the element of fire, and they have to do with the way that we use our energy, the way that we use our life force, the way that we move through and interact with life. Think about, if you know about astrology, think about the fire signs that Aries, Sagittarius, Leo. There's this, this go get 'em kind of energy. And so the king is this part that's kind of mastered that energy that we have within ourselves. So at this time, looking at how can I best utilize my energy today? How can I best utilize my energy at this time? Where am I putting my energy? Am I putting my energy into things that are sucking my soul? Or am I putting my energy into things that are nourishing my soul? Am I putting my energy into distractions, time wasters, things that make me feel worse than I did before I went into them? Am I tricking myself? I think a lot of people trick themselves into thinking I'm resting, but really they're just checking out and they're not getting any real rest, Like this can happen through scrolling through social media, playing a video game, watching a movie. It can feel like I'm exhausted and I want to rest, so this is what I'm going to do. But if you're honest with yourself, you'll see that it's not really restful. Maybe temporarily it's restful because you feel like, okay, I can rest my mind for a little bit, but it doesn't actually replenish. It doesn't actually do what you're actually wanting, which is really, really like resting, So you could also be looking at what actually makes me feel nourished, what actually makes me feel rested, charged, alive, full of energy. What are those things? You could even make a list. What are those things in my life? And if you don't know, if you're like, there's nothing in my life that does this for me, I feel so depressed and so exhausted and so hopeless, you need to look at things, that's not a good sign. You should have at least one thing in your life that makes you feel alive and nourished and good. And honestly, if you feel like there's nothing in your life that does that, it's probably, it is a blocking out of the things that do give you, it's like a denial of the things that do give you a sense of nourishment and rejuvenation. It's a denial of those things, I mean, that's what depression can do. The things that give you like happiness become not so, become like dull. So if that's the case too, you could look at why are things feeling dull now? Why do I feel this depression? What in my life is making me feel depressed at this time? Is it something from my past that's wanting me to feel? Is there some sort of wound or feeling or anxiety or fear from my past that's emerging at this time that I'm repressing, and so everything's becoming dull? Is there something in my current life that's making me miserable that I am ignoring so that I can function, but I'm actually not really functioning that well, so maybe I need to reevaluate it? So again, looking at how am I using my life force? How am I using my energy? I know there's so many things that get kind of utilized in a corny way or get overly said so that they lose their meaning. But one of those things is, if you were going to die, if you knew that you were going to die a year from now, would you keep living your life the way that you're living it now? What would you do differently? And it doesn't mean you have to, there are things that, like, if you're going to die a year from now, you probably don't care that much about money, right? But if you're going to live for another 50 years, money has some importance. It's not number one. It shouldn't be number one. But, you got to have a roof over your head and feed yourself and things like that. But, so you don't have to, you can do that exercise. It doesn't mean you have to completely throw everything out and live as if you were going to die in a year from now, although that could be pretty awesome to do. But it'll at least give you a sense of what are the things in my life that I don't really care about? Why am I doing them? Can I change them? If it's a job that you hate, is it possible for you to find something else? If it's a relationship that's really not improving, it's making you unhappy and it's not improving, and you've tried to work on it but it's not improving, and it's can you rethink that? Okay, I think that's what I have for everyone today. Where's your energy going? Are you happy with where it's going? Okay, everybody, so that's what I have for you all today. Before we end and before I share the quote of the day, I'll just let you guys know again, I have a Patreon. If you're enjoying the show and you want to support the show, please consider joining my Patreon. I have tiers starting at $2 a month. The $2 a month tier gets access to monthly tarot forecasts. So I do these collective tarot forecasts every month. At $5 a month, you get those tarot forecasts plus about 90 video classes at this point. On topics like tarot. Like I said, there's 35 classes or so on tarot. I have an intro to tarot series, which is 4 parts. I have a class on each card in the major arcana, which each class is a half an hour to an hour long. I really go into the meaning of the cards, the symbolism of the cards. I have classes on the suits, some kind of classes here and there, different types of tarot classes, and I'm working on doing some numerology classes soon. On that $5 a month tier, there's also classes on herbal medicine, on making herbal smokes, herbal steams, flower essences, how to make a really good flower essence, plant spirit communication, poisonous plant medicine. I have a class on symbolism, classes on healthy boundaries, the Book of the Dead. There's just tons and tons of stuff on there, all for $5. And like I said, if I was charging $1,000 for it all, I honestly wonder if more people would sign up for it. There's something people get into their head if it's affordable, it must not be good, or I must be trying to sell you something else. I'm not. I'm just, I don't know. It's just all there. So that's available. And then there's also on the Patreon, there's a $24 a month tier where I send out a monthly herbal care package, usually a flower essence. So if you're in the US, those get sent out to you, and you get that plus all the video classes. I also offer tarot readings through my website, kathrynsoli.com/tarot. And those make good presents, good gifts to people. So not a bad idea to think about that. Also the Patreon, you can gift to someone as well. You can buy them like a year Patreon membership, and then for a year, you know, they'll have access to all the video classes. And I also have the Poisonous Plant Medicine course, which starts in January 5th, I believe, is the next round of the level 1 that's starting. I have a level 2 starting, I believe, February 22nd. Those classes are, if you like my style of readings, you'll probably like those classes. Our focus is on plant spirit communication and poisonous plants. And what do poisonous plants do? Why am I focusing on them? It's because they bring us into contact with the wounded parts of ourselves. They can help us work through traumas and wounds, and are overall just really amazing. And I think that they're showing up for people at this time because we're in a period of time on the planet where things are not going so well. I don't know. I don't think anyone really is like, yeah, the world's moving in a great direction. And I feel like the main way to kind of turn things around is for long-term change, is people need to work through the stuff, the baggage that they're carrying. And I find poisonous plants to be a very accessible and gentle outlet to do so. We don't ingest the plants. I don't advocate for that at all. We're working with them on a plant spirit level. And then I also have a shop. I have kathrynsoli.com/shop. I sell flower essences, I sell necklaces and stickers and fun stuff. I'm hoping to get some merch for 1-800-CALL-KATHRYN soon, so working on that. But yeah, if you enjoy the show, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking these videos. I think it helps the algorithm will show this to more people, and I would really like to have more people watching the show. So if you enjoy it, one of the best things you can do is subscribe to the channel and like the videos. And thanks for being here. Call in. I always need calls for future shows, so keep the calls coming in. And I will see you next time.